Hey everyone, so today's tip is aimed at the newer players and maybe some intermediate players out there who have heard about wealth but have kind of disregarded it and just enjoy the game for what it was. But if you'd like to learn more about wealth, how it affects your game, and maybe how to control it a little bit, then stay tuned because that's what we're getting into. So hit that like, guys. If you're new, hit the subscribe. I really appreciate it. Anyway, so let's jump into it. As you can see, I've got this chart pulled up. Don't worry, it's kind of boring, but you realize it's very useful. So to pull that chart up, we want to come down here to the history tab with the little book icon. And there's three different tabs here, the graph, messages, and statistics. Just a real quick side note, if you ever accidentally click off one of your messages, but you wanted to read it, you can come in here and see all the list of older messages. But back to the graph. So this gives us a visual representation of the wealth that we've acquired over time. Yellow is the total wealth, so we'll pay attention to that, but it does split it up into items versus buildings versus creatures at the very bottom. So with that in mind, we can see that there are a couple significant dips here and a couple big raises. Now, what these really represent, the dips at least, is when I did a caravan. So you have a total amount of wealth, including pawns. The little characters all have a value in addition to the clothing and weapons they have. So whenever they leave the map with a bunch of trading stuff, your overall colony wealth does drop. Now, let's get off the visual representation and let's go to the statistics tab real quick. This gives us a full total number for our colony wealth, right? Where it says colony wealth, this map total 142,943. That's the total wealth of my colony. Now, that doesn't just, a very important thing to note is it doesn't just include things that are, for instance, just inside my walls or even things that are just inside my home zone. No, the colony wealth actually includes everything that is on the map, which is an item. Now, stone chunks, those don't count, but anything which has been dropped by a mechanoid, a colonist, a traveler, for instance, this plasteel out here, 28 plasteel, that is considered our colony wealth, even if it's forbidden and you've never touched it. It counts towards our total wealth, so keep that in mind. Very important note. Okay, so you may be asking yourself, well, why does the wealth matter at all? Well, here's a couple reasons why specifically. One is it does directly affect your colonist's mood in that it ups the expectations. If you just hoard a bunch of wealth but you don't provide amenities, recreations, or nice buildings for your people, they'll get upset because this expectations rises, things of that nature. So we want to keep our pawns in mind as we get more and more wealth. In addition to that, the raid points will actually be dependent on how wealthy the overall colony is. Now, what I mean by that is your AI storyteller will send raids at you occasionally according to their own designs, and those raids will be weighted based on your colony wealth. So how, if you have tons and tons of wealth, you're going to get hit pretty hard. But if you're a very poor colony, then the AI storyteller won't hit you quite as hard. So that's something to keep in mind. And at the highest difficulties, when you're playing on losing as fun, it's important to really micromanage your wealth in any way you can. Otherwise, early on, you'll just get bombarded by things which are really above your capabilities. So there are a lot of different techniques for handling wealth. We're only going to touch on a couple here. If you would like a longer video on managing wealth and keeping it as low as possible for as long as possible, just leave me a comment down below. I'll try and put something together. But for right now, we can talk about a couple different things. Okay, so one thing you can do to manage your wealth and keep it low is don't add floors. Every little thing you construct does increase the wealth slightly, even buildings and floors. So just leave some of your rooms, if they're, especially if they're non-essential, just don't floor them at all if nobody goes in them. Or if you just want to really, really keep your wealth tight, then don't put floors in at all. Now, another thing you can do in that same vein is manage your resources in terms of production. You can see I've got several refrigerators full of food here. Keep this to a minimum if you can. Don't butcher animals before you need them. Keep them alive. Just sterilize males so you don't have to kill them if you're worried about population control. That will help you manage your resources. Also, don't go mining all the steel that you see. Leave it in the mountains, and when you need it, just go get a small amount, just what you need. Those are a couple different techniques for managing your overall colony wealth. Eventually, at a certain point, it will start to balloon and explode beyond your control, but early stages of a very difficult, challenging game, it's a smart thing to do. So the last thing I want to touch on is related to actually the options menu when you're starting a colony. So we're going to jump back to the menu screen real quick. Okay, here we are at the menu. So what we're going to do is set up a quick colony, and we're going to go down into the custom menu. If we choose whatever difficulty we want, we can go custom down here, and if we look for it, we can do something that's called wealth independent. So let's see here. I think we've got it right here. Wealth independent progress mode. So if we read this real quick, in normal mode, the storyteller scales threats according to colonist count, player wealth, and a variety of other factors. Wealth independent mode removes the wealth factor and replaces it with the fixed progress curve based on time. The time is counted by the founding of the colony. So from day one, your colony will steadily get more and more challenging regardless of how much you have. So if you just want to race to the top and get as much wealth as you can while knowing that the threat is increasing steadily, this is what you select right here. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me. That does it for this video. Bit of a long one here, but it's an important subject for beginners to understand if you want to manage your raid size and the progression of your overall colony. So hit that like and subscribe. Leave me some comments below with different tips you've learned in your time so I can make some new videos. Anyway, thank you guys, and I will see you on the next one.